Welcome, everybody, to Flat Earth Nation. It is a Flat Earth Nation. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. Remember, telling the truth and the whole truth is what God expects. It's not because some people have in your past exposed a lie, withheld part of the truth, and implied another answer. And that's where we always get in trouble. I'm going to, I know, Lord willing, we'll pick up a few viewers here pretty soon. I don't, it's always hard, to be the, what's going on guy when you're talking to yourself. And I've mentioned it's weird because I used to make videos all the time, and I just turned around, and the next thing you know, there's four people watching me fish around doing something when just a minute ago, nobody. Ah. Can't believe that was trapped in there so well. First comment. Yay, Sean. Sean, you're not going to believe this stuff that's going on tonight. We're going to be talking about liberals. I've got this lady pulled up, and I can't figure out if she's a Bible teacher from a local junior college, but it doesn't have where she's teaching. It doesn't sound like a Christian education. And that's why I subtitled the description. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Oh, I had plenty of battery left. Kind of a last minute topic, but totally counting on the Holy Spirit and feeling it too. All day, it's just been nothing but getting it done, going over things. Tommy's making discoveries left and right, starting new experiments with magnetic batteries north and south of root balls on the cucumbers, controls and everything else. It's going good. I mentioned, and Tommy mentioned, I was going to the VA, so I have my briefcases and everything all set. I was going through there. Still have everything in order and copies. (2012). 2012. It was a different life for Paco back then. Didn't just learned about that year, 9/11, 2012. Look at some of this stuff I got here, man. They say you got to save all this stuff, and I did. I even got, look at, what's this? Man, that's how much money I got deposited in the bank. Or I had a payment on something there. $15.75 a week. Bought a car in 1982, I guess. Whatever. Last one I'll show you are things like this. Because when people are going to come and go, you didn't do all that stuff you said you did and you weren't where you were, I'm going to have to just sit around and go, oh, Au contraire, I've still got, you're not going to be able to make the types of claims I make and not have it backed up. Did I get 36 credit hours one time in 8 hours? Looks like it. This stuff, I'm not kidding you. It's been a fun life. And, here's me. Trust the Bible. Love Jesus. Really love Jesus, because Jesus and God are love. And that used to be a welcome message in this world. People act, I wasn't teaching it right. We didn't know anything about the flat earth and stuff. But even then, those people that acted like they were helping you then, now all of a sudden you're the spawn of Satan because you believe the earth is flat and people should really believe the Bible. And they look at me and they look at my wife and they go, "We thought you were faking because you just wanted a Christian wife like that." And I was going like, "No, well, I believed it." Get out of here. I did. And I do. Now, what I don't appreciate is the way some, and in this case, it's a woman, and maybe it's because I have, mostly women that want to be guests on my show, and I'm a big fan of Ella and Ashley and stuff like that. And I show Shelly, the homeschooling mom. Doesn't she have that channel? There's No Place Like Home. So now it's time to show a girl. I just don't like the way she talks about God. And remember when we just get a taste for it, and I don't have any rights for this. This is me critiquing another so-called pastor. You help me figure out where does she work? What is this? The Portland Community College. It's Jenny G. Bird, piled high and deeper. And this is the religious studies course at a local junior college. And man, is she serious about it. I have a feeling she just got fired up over this. And now, she's been holding this in for years now. And Jennifer Bird, Jenny, don't lose my number. I just don't like the way she talks. And I'm just saying right now, you guys, I'm just saying right now, from this angle, this is your typical male hand. Because this is do, re, mi. All men. Jenny, don't lose that number. 8. Jennifer, James.
His own nature, for he is a liar and the father of lies. In case you are not aware, this element of John's Gospel contributed to Christians treating Jews horribly over the centuries. Or what about the story Jesus tells about the sheep and goats? Most people focus on the point of the story, which is probably good, which is that in treating the least among us with love, we are also loving God. It is a powerful message, and one that social justice activists use a lot. But what is usually brushed aside is the vehicle for the message, the metaphor being
Oh, gracias, senor. Tell us more.
See, those who take care of the sick and visit prisoners are likened to the sheep on God's right hand who will inherit God's kingdom. Those who do not do these things are likened to goats placed at God's left hand and then cursed, as in Matthew 25:41. Then God will say to those at his left hand, "You that are accursed, depart from me into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels." I hope you'll take a few moments to reflect.
I don't listen to the. I like to usually do my own Bible reading and stuff. And I love to read the Bible. But if I ever thought I sounded like that, or once again, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. People are paying. These are online classes. She's talking to her class right now, cool as that cucumber with the magnetics on it. Let's hear what she says.
I hope you'll take a few moments to reflect on that. We could also look at these passages from Paul, where God's wrath from me into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. I hope you'll take a few moments.
Okay. So there's a lot going on there. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, I mean, she doesn't it make it sound like, oh, I got to give you the full context. She's trying to prove that some people go, don't you think you hear that there's two gods of the Bible, one in the Old Testament, one in the New Testament? And you always hear the God that kills everybody in the Old Testament and the one that's nice in the New Testament. She's trying to prove that Jesus is just as mean as the Old Testament God. So that's why, there's no context of that. It's a judgment. The good people will be on the right, the good people on the left. It's just that, well, you heard, depart from me, you cursed. It's, he, instead of just, you don't, not this, then that, depart from me, you cursed, into eternal fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. You can look at that either way, saying, that sucks, it's not fair. Or if God has changed your heart, oh, okay, now I know. I'm going. There's going to be this judgment, and I want to be good. I want to finish in the faith. You pass. Will I be saved? Die in faith, and then I'll tell you. Same with me. Same with anybody else. I got a pretty good feeling about myself, but we'll know for sure when I die in faith. Hand on the plow. Verse 42. For I was hungry and you gave me no food. I wonder if she would have said meanly, well, that day the progressive were busy, planning something else. Jesus was thirsty and you gave me no drink. Not only that, you murdered him. Naked and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, you did not visit me. A few more minutes to contemplate this verse. Then Jesus says in verse 44, then they also will answer, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and thirsty and a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not minister to you? Then he will answer them, saying, truly I say to you, as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. And this lady who will, I wasn't sharing, but this lady will always look at me and use that same tone of voice. Just reflect on what you're saying and who God killed people and called them cursed. Well, and he warns you not to act like this. Don't millstone children with your defiant behavior and act like God's in the wrong here. But that's what they do. I'll show you. The reason I pulled this up and I watched part of this one, I looked at some of her videos. I decided we might look at this and then work our way back to the essences. Tree of knowledge of good and evil. Was Eve set up? Together, we'll explore this video.
I think it's the book of Numbers. Azazel was in the book of Enoch, by the way, which is really weird. He falls from heaven. All these characters get lumped in as like the devil.
Yep, it's a big pot that stirred around.
Yeah, then you see.
That's the best speakers I got.
What's going on there?
Okay, yeah, and actually, that's why I recommended the book, The Quest for the Historical Satan by Miguel de la Torre. He does a lot of, mostly he does theology and really.
Right, she's probably a girl. I was just being mean because she couldn't defend it. What can she say? What difference does it make? I shouldn't have known. It doesn't really matter. Is she going to come out today like Michelle Obama, spelling women WOMXN? What is that even? What is that? Now you knock off that self-loathing Oregonian. Take up origami and be an optimistic Oregonian origami hobbyist. Hola, Marcella. Hola, Bobby. Got a dozen people already watching. That's pretty cool, huh? JPT. I just had a wonderful time doing that show today and everything, and then listening to Tommy talk about the crazy grand juries and how that works and everything. And some of those cases are over 2 years old. They're just getting indicted. They can't really tell you a lot. This will be the 2-second comment post. All right. Well, everybody here knows that in late 2016, I was so fed up with that election that I didn't prophesy, but I said, this is as close as I can get with the best of my prognostication. I took a look into the future with the help of, I think, 7 drops of LSD into my eyeball. And about 4 hours later, I heard myself saying, someday Barack Obama and Michelle Michael will come out of the closet. Michelle will run for president and Barack will be appointed to the United Nations that year. And they will be held up to be admired because they'll say we suffered so much as men in love, but we had to do it because that's the way it was back then to people like us. And at this point, they will be portrayed as the only people who can save us, heal us even, maybe. And I'll bet I haven't done 30, 40, maybe 50 hits of acid since that time in 2016. I used to do it every day, all the time. I'm done with it. I only do it about 20 times a year. I don't even care about it anymore. What else? I mean, for crying out loud, Barack Obama, Michael, this girl, Jenny, try to listen carefully. I don't know what's going on with the audio. Just not there. Hi, Vicky. We're still praying for your son and whoo-hoo and all the time. I know I am. I hope everybody else is too. Tree of knowledge. Try to listen closely because Jimmy and the Gnostic informant are having trouble.
Trying to help people kind of progress in their theological thinking. But this book, I don't remember what year you published it, but it'll give you way more than you even wanted to know in terms of the development of the thought around Satan or the devil or whatever, and where some of those the pieces come from. Like why red, why horns, why all of that. Like that comes out of ancient Persian thought, ancient Mesopotamian thought, or Egyptian thought. So he covers that. But you're right. One of the things I like to offer then on this conversation is to consider that Hasatan was not originally out to get anyone, and
Hasatan. Remember, I talked about Hasatan and Ha-Adam, Ha-Elohim. So Jimmy is really learning that number, and I know maybe I'll send her an email and say, Jimmy, who can I turn to?
Hasatan is not in Genesis, so that is purely just a serpent having a conversation with a human, as you do, right? Worth considering that actually doesn't happen. So another element of the mythic piece going on there. But when Hasatan does show up, Hasatan is really just kind of playing the devil's advocate. That's what his role is. And make sure.
Because the Hasatan, unnamed until even hinted at until late in the Old Testament, confirmed in the New Testament, emphasized in Revelation 20, verse 2, where it calls him the devil, the old serpent, something else, and Satan. 4 different things, just to make sure they mean it is Diabolos. They know there is a Satan. Now, at the time of Genesis, though, it was somebody, because there was already a sin in heaven, or Jesus wouldn't have called out when they had the other Elohims together. He would not have called out in the council of heaven Lot. That whole situation. He called out Satan. He goes, hey, man, what would you do to Lot? And Satan just couldn't resist himself. I'd kill him and his family, man. And that was, there's sin in heaven. The epistle of 1 John chapter 3, verse 8, second portion says, the Son of Man entered earth to take care of the sin that was already in heaven. So yeah, that the real Satan influenced something, and that caused Eve to sin. It wasn't the first sin. It was the first sin for we-Adam, Ha-Adam. And if you give a damn, I'll show you later.
Overlook something important, but and Lucifer is another character entirely, the light bearer, and I was looking at the 2 passages in the Hebrew Bible that people tend to point to for Satan. It's just Ezekiel and Isaiah 14. They have nothing to do with a devil, a Satan, or anyone evil. They are foreign leaders. Let's just let them be that.
King of Tyre is kind of related to Manasseh or Ephraim.
Right. And so it's the book of Revelation, what I think it's really confusing and what people get really wound up about and around. And again, it's literature. It's not predicting the future. These aren't real characters. This is literature, and we're trying to talk about the Roman Empire in metaphorical terms. And
right, and maybe that you almost have to wonder if the author of Revelation was influenced by dualism.
To get to your question about dualism, sorry, I didn't mean to deflect that. Yeah. No, I see dualistic thought throughout. It's heavy in Paul's writings. It's the most popular.
Look at that grinning monkey. He looks like the guy from The Princess Bride going, would you believe I'm the Dread Pirate Robert? No, I believe you're an MK Ultra tool.
Gospel today, it's at least around more conservative and evangelical groups, is the Gospel of John, because there's a lot of clear-cut yes and no thinking, which is completely dualistic, and it's very harmful in the end.
Dualism. Oh, dualism. Yeah, anybody thinks that this is what the Apostle Paul is talking about? Janus and that group? See, it's symmetrical, not asymmetrical, or it's asymmetrical. They're not exact copies. They want you to think you've got a good angel on your shoulder and a bad angel on your shoulder. The only people that tell you that, are the Gnostics looking to vindicate Immanuel Kant, who can't do theology very. He's like, he writes a thick book, though. Lawrence, what is this? This is like German Wikipedia. You got the Flemington engraving. Yeah, I had some quotes from Thomas Jefferson pulled up. I even used this one pretty sure that's what I used for a thumbnail. The Supreme Being and his Father in the womb of the Virgin will be classed with the fable of the generation of Minerva in the brain of Jupiter. What were these guys doing helping the revolutionaries in France after they did ours? Well, that's where the Catholics assigned them at that time. Get over there and help foment the French Revolution. Christianity neither is nor ever was a part of the common law. But, everybody loves them, especially the politicians. I concur with the author in considering the moral precepts of Jesus as more pure, correct, and sublime than those of ancient philosophers. Well, it depends on where you're giving the speech that day. Oh, look, he wrote a letter to somebody. They got proof. See, he wasn't all bad. Dedicated in 1904 from a letter in 1822. Thomas Jefferson. The religion builders have so distorted and deformed the doctrines of Jesus, so muffled them in mysticism, fancies, and falsehoods. Who is Thomas Jefferson? He hung out with the other people, like George Washington. He married a girl. He married a girl that was a guy. I think he was one of those Opus Dei assassins or some crap. You know what the houses of Burgess is? It's our Senate now. It used to be the House of Burgess, well, that's what they were in Europe. George Washington, apotheosis. Get a load of this girl. Get to the point. Was Eve deceived? Was she set up? Smile, Jimmy.
I've been doing like the Rosetta Stone app, and I found out that the word Adon means red. The word for man is each. And I'm like, wait a minute. I've been told growing up by Christians in the church that Adam means man. Where did that even come from? Is that not even true, if I'm not mistaken? Where did that happen?
Yeah, Adam, or Ha is the definite article. So Adam is human, and in kind of the generic sense, as in a human being.
But it doesn't mean man at all.
It doesn't, but it's turned into that because of biases of the translation committees, right? Those kinds of things. So we get the name Adam from Ha-Adam, and so then that kind of bolsters the whole belief that Adam means man. Where, like you said, Ish. If you look at the Hebrew in that chapter, you get Ish and Isha as soon as we have two, and those are the nouns for man and woman.
Which is like the first thing you learn in Hebrew.
Yeah.
Like the first step one, learn how to say the word man and woman. Wait a minute, I'm already deconstructing what I'm like, oh my God, I have so much to learn. Like, I don't know anything.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot.
I literally thought up until a couple of years ago that the word for man in Hebrew was Adam.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Them.
Yeah, a lot of them. But anyway, I just want to get that out there.
Mm-hmm.
You point out that Paul talks about the church of God as being the church within Judaism. And then Acts talks about Antioch, first place where Christians call themselves, people call themselves Christians. Paul claims he only knew Peter and James, but Acts tells a different story.
Yeah.
When do you think Christianity...
Wait a minute. What?
In Hebrew was Adam.
Yeah.
That's why I thought. Yeah, a lot of them. But anyway, just want to get that out there.
Mm-hmm.
You point out that Paul talks about the church of God as being
Paul talks about the church of God as being
church within Judaism. And then Acts talks about Antioch, first place where Christians call themselves, people call themselves Christians. Paul claims he only knew
Peter and Paul. No, he doesn't. He writes a book where he goes into and says he talked to all the people.
Peter and James, but Acts tells a different story.
Yeah.
What? And when do you think Christianity officially became its own separate entity?
First off, build a lie and then build an argument around it.
Okay. So to address that specific question, I do want to clarify that yes, I say that about the community within that Paul is talking about is within Judaism, and and he calls them an ecclesia, and so an ecclesia was already a thing that existed. That's a political group or a social group. Primarily, they were groups that either had to do with politics or they were the groups that made sure someone buried you when you died, which has an interesting connection to churches today, by the way. When you think about it, right? So, Paul, to break it down as simply as I can, I think of Paul as bringing Gentiles into Judaism. And because he was doing that, it meant that the Judaism in that space looked very different from regular, if you'll just bear with me on that kind of phrasing. So regular Judaism wasn't about bringing people in. It wasn't a proselytizing religion. It never has been, right? And the makeup in that space then was predominantly...
Now, who is just off the top of your head, who makes more sense that, as I teach, that what were the Persians basically teaching ever since Xerxes married Esther, a Jew, and Mordecai saved the day, and then Daniel saved the day, and then Ezra and Nehemiah and Jeremiah, everybody saved the day working with the Persians. And since that time, with Zoroastrianism and everything else, what were there? Oh, they weren't proselytizing? Then how come wherever they went, a lot of times it was the God-fearing Greeks who had built the synagogues? Because they were waiting on the Messiah. Why did the Medes, the laws of the Medes and the Persians must agree? Why did the Medes send wise men going, hey, where's that Messiah? We're here to worship him. We've been waiting like the Greeks, the Persians, the Romans. And in her mind, it's not true at all. And in her mind, she wants you to believe that the Apostle Paul claims he only ever met Peter and James. Where do they get off just spouting off goofiness? They did go up here after 3 years to Jerusalem. Do you think he snuck in at night? He went in to visit Peter and he went there 15 days. Do you think he snuck in there? He said he saw none of the other apostles at that time, but that's because they weren't in Jerusalem. But he was there, and he talked to James, who was the patriarch, the bishop of that church. He's not trying it, to hide anything. When we read Peter's final words are a ringing endorsement of Brother Paul and saying, look, he is our beloved brother Paul. All of the things that he wrote to you, according to the wisdom given to him by God, and all the peoples agreed. And the people that don't understand some of the things Paul teaches, because Peter agrees some are hard to understand, and the ignorant and unstable twist them to their own destruction. Forgetting we are the beloved, painting God as someone who is not love, always excusing their evil behaviors, while we and them back then continue in the grace and knowledge of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. To him be the glory both now to them then and to the day of eternity, the people waiting on Gog and Magog after the 1,000 years. I wish I would have been showing you those scriptures. You could have been reading along. It would have been better. It would have been what I thought was going on. But we'll go back now to Jimmy and the Gnostic.
Gentile, not entirely. And that's a thing to wrestle with and figure out and to see and to wrap our heads around why other Jews would look at this sect of Judaism and say, they're the Christ ones. That negative slur is what Christian was initially, being used by Jews over here to refer to that heretical sect of Judaism over there. And so it started out that way. The label Christian that we know of was first used in the year 67. But as I said, it was a slur, and it was used within Judaism from this group to that group. And but we can see a separation that early. So when we talk about when did what is now Christianity fully separate from the rest of Judaism, we usually say
the rest of them separated when they realized, like what Paul was teaching, there were some Jews that went out and claimed to be from James and Peter and the church in Jerusalem that were teaching evil things. Behold, they were called the synagogue of Satan because they were anti-Christians, anti-Gentile. But the church worked it out. And some people need to beware and understand that there are deep things of Satan. And things are explained in the New Testament, not in the Old. The teachings of Balaam. Nobody in the Old Testament, we're not told in our book of remembrance, we're told in this part that Balaam taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the sons of Israel so that they might eat food sacrificed to idols and practice sexual immorality. You won't find that in Numbers 22. If I'm remembering, if it's not Numbers 22, I'm not going to search for it more than a little bit. No, that's it. You see, all this is come curse him, and God wouldn't let him. Balaam, you know, everybody remembers it because the ass spoke with the voice of a man. Verse 22 in Numbers 22, but God's anger was kindled because he went and the angel of the Lord took his stand in the way as his adversary. Ahasatan? I don't know. Let's look. Who is that adversary? Someone against him, an adversary. Leisitan. Ha ha! Two can play that game. I kind of knew that was there, but I didn't want to say it because I wasn't completely sure. It's been a long time. But that's when the prophet, that's when I go, yeah, thank you, Lord. So he struck the donkey. And I love this part where the donkey goes, am I not your donkey on which you've ridden all your life long to this day? Is it my habit to treat you this way? And Balaam said, no. And the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord, the angel of Jehovah, God in the flesh, Yahweh, the angel, and he saw Balaam, and Yahweh opened his eyes. Here's the angel. Malak. Not quite, but possibly the angels that appear to many unawares. We have to keep these things open as possibilities. Not that we'll know now, but it will be interesting later. I find it interesting. I have a brand new bottle of water that's just been over here staying cold. Oh, where's her next video?
In the year 67. But as I said, it was a slur and it was used within Judaism from this group to that group. And this, but we can see a separation that early.
So we'll just see her recent videos. Where's the one I wanted to talk about?
Those lines. I wonder who among you have thought about women's uteruses and the way these stories describe them.
You know, so here we go. This is brand new, it looks like. Only 33 subscribers so far. I hope I'm not propping up something here that's going to come back and bite me. This clip asked you to think about what is being said about women and their inability or ability to produce children, and the extent to which these ideas might still be alive and well today. Jimmy, don't lose that number.
Yeah. God withholds growth within them and then miraculously or magically grants it. For instance, as we see in Rachel and Leah's struggle to be loved by Jacob, starting in Genesis 29. When the Lord saw that...
What was that look?
Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. The narrator covers the birth of four sons.
Remember, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Always with the negative vibes, Jimmy.
By Leah in 5 whirlwind verses. And then, when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister. And she said to Jacob, "Give me children or I shall die."
Oh, so Butch.
Jacob became very angry with Rachel and said, "Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?"
I got a PhD in acting. All it took was some time.
Both men and women seem to believe conception was allowed or prevented directly by God.
And you know what? What if it is? What if it was? What if it will continue to be? What's your point? Is that an option for you? What are you trying to teach the public school minds at the Portland Junior College where you teach at?
When I read this chapter of Genesis, I imagine a movie like scene of 4 women, 2 on each side, Leah and her...
I imagine Hillary Clinton as a younger, less enabled Rhodes Scholar saying, "This is my lot in life. I have to do this now." She'll probably be playing Hillary Clinton in 10 years when she goes for re-election.
Bilhah and Rachel and her slave Bilhah in a baby-making face-off, producing children back and forth, practically pulling babies out of vaginas with God's direct intervention, and the bartering for a night with Jacob using some mandrakes.
I wonder what, if she's a little bit flippant with, what's going on here. Not much respect for the scripture, but I got a feeling she's emphasizing her skill as an orator. What she's doing is putting her heart into it because she's showing she'll do it with gusto. Oh, I'll talk about the Bible. I'll destroy the Bible. I'll throw a millstone on these children so hard it'll be easy to convince them into vibratory masturbation.
This is a one-up womanship like you've never seen. 4 women in a hurry to prove they are worthy. And then, once they have served their purpose, providing Jacob with sons, all 4 women all but drop out of the narrative. But I do wonder who among you can relate to Sarah's and Rachel's plight, either in terms of the unsatisfied, deep yearning for a viable...
You know what? Should we apologize? Should we go, "Sorry, ma'am, the Bible doesn't pay enough emphasis on women for you," because we're apologizing for everything else, right? And when she wants to do this and that and say, "They just dropped out of the picture." Well, we wanted to know what they were doing. Well, did it matter that Joseph was going there to prepare the way they were going into captivity? I doth protest too much. We still going to have to look at some more of her videos. Maybe she'll clear this up. In this situation, truer words could not be spoken than were just typed in by JPT. Thank you, brother. Muchos gracias. Showing my bilingual skills again, which is the only bi thing about me. And actually, that's not even bi. Because I can say, I could go like, sayonara, adios, ciao, arrivederci. Did I say sayonara? Das Bedanya. How many languages do I have to speak over here? We're just teasing. Just playing. I'm not a linguist. Neither is he. I mean, it, she. Cisgender. What is she claiming? Oh, Jenny, don't lose my number.
No child. Or in the social script that says that they aren't as valued or honored as women who have brought humans into the world. Of course, the former is still something women experience, no question. It breaks my heart that the latter is as well.
I want to feel sorry for her, so I should hear it again. Hold it. Hold it.
Question. It breaks my heart that the latter is as well. Whatever the have brought humans into the world. Of course, the former is still something women experience, no question. But the unsatisfied, deep yearning for a bio child, or in the social script that says that they aren't as valued or honored as women who have brought humans into the world.
Okay, that's the latter.
Of course, the former is still
Women who, oh, I wish I had a baby that I didn't abort, or I could conceive now. I've had 15 sexually transmitted disease. Fill in the blank. I'm 40% of the female population above 15 hooked on heroin, fentanyl, or another drug for pain, constipated all the time, wondering when I can have a comfortable poop.
something women experience, no question. It breaks my heart that the latter is as well. Whatever the case, perhaps it's worth reconsidering the conviction that God intervenes directly and constantly in every woman's uterus.
Yeah, and women should be in, women should be able to love God, fear God, and when it comes to their body, say my body, my choice. But with anything else, they don't want it flipped on them. I don't, I should be able to say that. And if I can't say that, this channel goes the way of the other channel. You have to be able to say, there has to be the people out there that say, I believe in the Bible, and that when the vast majority of the time, I don't know what these hermaphrodite things are all about. I've never seen this type of a situation. Do I believe they exist? The overwhelming proof says they do. But when a doctor delivers a baby, they're not guessing. There are certain times they know. And you don't have to have a gender reveal party. Anybody that believes in scripture will say, no, you don't need that. And if it is the ultra rare case, then that's best kept private. That's not something that a child waits to say, I'm a girl or a boy. Anyone that teaches that, we have every right to question their salvation or their sincerity, that when this thing, shrugs her shoulders and says, well, if a girl can't control her own uterus, maybe we shouldn't believe in the Bible, because we don't want to believe that God controls every uterus. He certainly doesn't control hers. So all of these videos it looks like they were put out over the course of a 1-year stay or 3-year stay at the local junior college. Then she must have got a little bit of a help.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jennifer Bird. I teach R to 11 Intro to the Old Testament online for Portland Community College. and I appreciate your interest in the course. Some really important things for you to know up front if you are considering this course, and they primarily have to do with the interesting situation of studying the Bible academically as compared to doing a Bible study. So there are a handful of things I just want to run past you just to kind of for you to know about this course before enrolling in it. So I'm going to do a little share screen here and move over to this. So the purpose of a course such as this one, there's also Intro to the Newer Testament online as well, but the purpose of this course, from my perspective, in addition to kind of the objectives of the course, looks something like this. I'm a biblical scholar, and I want to help you become better informed about the Bible. So this course is meant to give you a space to let you do the reading of the Bible for yourself. Obviously, people have been doing that for ages, right? Actually, a lot of people read the Bible with what they've been told it should say, or how they've been told to interpret a story. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Now, on that we agree, don't we? Because we were all reading the Bible globe-centered the way we thought. Give you space to ask questions, get you to think about the content of Scripture quite seriously, and consider alternative views from yours. This is what I kind of want to do. It is not a Bible study. That's what I like to do. An attempt to poke holes in someone's faith. I think she's lying outright there. She's trying to destroy anyone's faith and do nothing but poke holes in someone's faith. I believe this woman is a wolf in sheep's clothing, only lying about wanting to help. And in her mind, she believes that young women will be better prey if they don't believe the Bible.
Of course, with a faith background or even currently in, I do understand what is me trying to tell anyone what to think or believe. That's just not appropriate. What I'd like to invite you to think about and process about Genesis 1:28 are the following 4 questions. 1. Did any humans ever need to be told the things in 1:28? Go procreate and subdue the earth around you? 2. For whom was this story written? Who will give more than just a passing thought to this element of the story? 3. Why the focus on 1:28 and the near total ignoring of 1:29?
Who is ignoring Genesis 1:29? And God said, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. What does that have to do with 28? And God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. Did God really have to ask them to tell them to do that? Well, when he told them to spread out, they didn't spread out. And then, well, go on. What's the big deal about zippity doo dot? Swing your partner, Jimmy.
Why does 1:28 get such focused attention and commitment? Well, most people don't even know what 1:29 says. And number 4, brace yourself. Is Genesis 1:28 even talking about marriage? I know that last one might feel ridiculous to even contemplate for some folks. If that's the case for you, please just take a deep breath and hang in there with me. For the sake influenced for their decisions. Look!
Oh, look, she did something with his hair. I mean, her hair. Very sporty. Spicy.
Left our homes and followed you. And then Jesus said in response, truly I tell you, there is no one who has left house or wife or brothers or parents or children for the sake of the kingdom of God, who will not get back very much more in this age and in the age to come, eternal life. I'm pretty sure this comment covers all nuclear family relationships, doesn't it? So strike two for Jesus in the not so family values kind of person as we thought, right? The only other time Jesus even comes close to talking about a marriage is in Matthew 25, where he tells a story about 5 wise and 5 foolish bridesmaids, though the Greek calls them virgins, awaiting the groom's arrival at the wedding reception. I happen to think that the other time Jesus even comes close to talking about a marriage is in Matthew 25, where he tells a story about 5 wise and 5 foolish bridesmaids, though the Greek calls them virgins, awaiting the groom's arrival at the wedding reception. I happen to think that this is another parable that has often been mishandled, and I direct you to the article by the Reverend Dr. Mitzi Smith in the further reading for stimulating insights to these ends. But whatever the case,
Wow. Wow. I would have sure got an idea that somehow that they would have picked up somewhere the scriptures, that the whole basic Bible, even Wikipedia is going to admit that it's about marriage. That's how evil these people are. Do you understand? They try to keep the church as not being identified as a bride. He hath, the bride is the bridegroom. He which standeth and heareth them rejoice greatly because of the bridegroom's voice. Thus my joy therefore is fulfilled. Revelation talks about it. Jesus's first miracle was at a wedding, and it blessed the wedding. It made the wedding better. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife, and they shall be one flesh. Let's just get a couple of visions here. In his vision, in Revelation chapter 19, verses 7 and 10, John saw and heard the heavenly multitudes praising God because the wedding feast of the Lamb, literally the marriage supper, was about to begin. The concept of the marriage supper is better understood in light of the wedding customs in the time of Christ. These wedding customs had three major parts. First, the marriage contract was signed by the parents of the bride and the bridegroom, and the parents of the bridegroom or the bridegroom himself would pay a dowry to the bride or her parents. This began what was called the betrothal period, what we would call today the engagement. This period was the one Joseph and Mary were in when she was found to be with child. The second step in the process usually occurred a year later. And they would go and, it'd be like they were married. They were already under contract, and now it was going to be fulfilled. The third phase was the marriage supper itself, which might go on for days, as illustrated by the wedding at Cana, John chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. Now they tie it into the bridegroom as the rapture. We know it as the blessed first resurrection. Wonder what else is going on in the world today. Here's what the liberals are saying about that. Now, Jimmy Dore, very much a liberal activist. Be warned.
The good warmongering, bloodthirsty enemies of the people in the United States, they want to reinforce the culture war with this. And so they want to take this mass shooting by a maniac who expresses his love and devotion for white supremacist Nazis, like the ones we're funding in Ukraine. And now they're going to make it into you have to hate Republicans.
From what I understand, his manifesto was all over the place. Like, he was like 20 different things.
Yeah, the guy's a mental case.
Yeah.
He's a mental case. The guy was a mental case.
MK Ultra mental
Republican
case.
Congressman and blamed it on Rachel Maddow. Now, nobody actually thought it was Rachel Maddow's fault, but everyone wants to pretend that this is somehow a news person's fault. Like this guy, Joe Lockhart. He says, more blood on the hands of Tucker Carlson and Fox News. Right, because they just invented anti-immigrant policies, right? Because that's all this is about. More blood on the hands of Tucker Carlson and Fox News. This killer used their racist talking points to justify killing 10 people. Carlson won't stop because, as he explained to the New York Times, it's good for ratings. Lives be damned, as Carlson will be at Judgment Day.
Do you believe that?
Here's another one. Here's by King Moron. Rob Reiner. Never met a dumb thing that won't come out of his head. Boy, if there was ever a guy aptly named as a character called Meathead, it's this fucking guy. The racist massacre in Buffalo rests at the feet of Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson, and the GOP. There are not fine people on both sides. What about the lead poisoning deaths in Flint? Whose feet do they lay at? Barack Obama, right? Because he was president then, and he went there and he didn't fix it. So he's poisoning children. But let's pretend that some politicians are good and some politicians are bad. So this is all.
See, Jimmy is still mad that Bernie didn't speak out when Hillary ripped him off. So he's continuing to be mad at the world. He's a Bernie Sanders guy.
About Tucker Carlson having what they consider racist rhetoric around immigration. He's for strong borders, and he's constantly, he pushes that thing they call white replacement theory, right? So what he says is that the Democrats want the borders open so they can have Hispanics flood our country, and then they can register to vote, become citizens, register to vote, or I don't know, illegally vote, which, even though that never happens. And every Hispanic that they allow into the country illegally is going to replace a white person voting, and they can take over our culture that way. That's called, I think I'm explaining it correctly, maybe I'm not, but I think that's what they mean by white replacement theory, which is not new. Well, who would agree with Tucker Carlson on this? It sounds like Bernie Sanders agrees with Tucker Carlson's position on strong borders and keeping poor Hispanics out of our country for the same reason that Tucker Carlson says, because they're taking our jobs. Think I'm kidding? Here we go. Here's Bernie Sanders.
And what you said about being a democratic socialist is a more international view. But I think if you take global poverty that seriously, it leads you to conclusions that in the U.S. are considered out of political bounds. Things like sharply raising the level of immigration we permit, even up to a level of open borders, about sharply increasing
open borders. That's a Koch brothers proposal. The idea, of course, I mean that's a right-wing proposal, which says essentially there is no United States.
But it would make a lot of global.
That's what Tucker Carlson says. If you don't have a border and you don't control it, you don't have a country. That's exactly what Bernie Sanders just said.
Isn't that also exactly what these people say about the border of Ukraine?
That's exactly what they say about it. Yes. Here we go. There's more to this.
Or richer, wouldn't it?
And it'd make everybody in America poor. Then you're doing away with.
So he's saying if you have open borders and you allow immigration across our southern border, it will make everybody in the United States poorer. That's what he just said. Sounds like Tucker Carlson.
Ezra Klein is a real piece of shit, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Wow. He's just a tool like all of them. He's another Chuck Todd. He's another Jim Acosta. He's another Chris Hayes, Rachel Maddow. They all work for the same people.
And it'd make everybody in America poor. Then you're doing away with the concept of a nation state. And I don't think there's any country in the world which believes in that. If you believe in a nation state, or a country called the United States, or UK, or Denmark, or any other country,
you have accepted the mark of the beast.
Obligation, in my view, to do everything we can to help poor people. What right-wing people in this country would love is an open border policy. Bring in all kinds of people who work for $2 or $3 an hour. Help.
So Tucker Carlson says that's what Bernie Sanders wants to do, and Bernie Sanders says that's what Tucker Carlson wants to do. Isn't that weird? I think that's weird.
I don't believe in that. I think we have to raise wages in this country. I think we have to do everything that we can to create the millions of jobs. You know what youth unemployment in the United States of America today? If you're white, the white kid high school graduate, 33%. The Hispanic, 36%. African American, 51%.
51.
33. 36, 51.
We should open the borders and bring in a lot of low-wage workers. What do you think? Maybe we should try to get jobs for those kids. So I think from a moral responsibility, we've got to work with the rest of the industry.
So what he's saying is, if we let those Hispanics come over our border, they're going to take our jobs from our kids, which is exactly what they say on Fox News.
Bernie hates women and he's racist?
He's a misogynist and he's a racist.
As well. To address the problems of international poverty, but you don't do that by making people in this country even poorer.
So then what are the responsibilities we have?
Now let's remember he supports an administration, two of them, Barack Obama and Joe Biden, which takes immigrants and puts their kids in cages. That's who he supports. They did not, by the way, they're putting more kids in cages than under Trump.
I really think that the Christian right wing should do more engagement with the Bernie Sanders voters and just say, hey, look, you've got to wake up. And it doesn't do us any good to think that, a lot of the liberals don't have the crap figured out that is the crap. Like this guy, there's still tons of people on the left that are like us that don't want the jab, that still want free speech. This moron loves abortion. I'm not saying subscribe and go to see his comedy shows. I don't think him or his wife is funny, but I think it's very interesting the way they're trying to I mean, obviously, Bernie Sanders will say anything somebody puts a dollar in front of his face tells him to say. Not so. On Mudflood Was Armageddon.
No one cares, including Bernie Sanders. Isn't that racist? Because when Trump did it, it was racist. And people went and AOC cried at the gate. Now they all pretend it's not even happening. But they want you to focus on Tucker Carlson doing and saying the same things that right-wingers have said forever and Bernie Sanders is saying.
If that kind of zero-sum calculation, right, between someone who is poor by U.S. standards, but is quite well off by, say, Malaysian standards, redounds so easily to the benefit of the person in the U.S., and how do we think about that responsibility? I guess I'm asking here for, I agree, you have a nation-state structure. You always are going through the politics, don't allow anything else. But I guess philosophically the question is, how do you weight it? How do you think about what the foreign aid budget would be? How do you think about poverty for
and I'll tell you why I would. Well, first of all, again, as a United States Senator from Vermont, my first obligation, frankly, is to make certain that kids in my state, kids all over this country, have the ability to go to college, which is why I am supporting tuition-free public colleges and universities. I believe we should create millions of jobs rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure and ask the wealthiest people in this country to start paying their fair share of taxes. I believe we should raise the minimum wage to at least $15 an hour so people in this country are not living in poverty. I think we end the disgrace of some 20% of our kids living in poverty.
Now, he's not willing to do anything political to make that happen. He's not willing to stick his chin out and risk anything and go against his own party to make sure any of that happens. He's not going to do anything to make sure that happens, but he will talk about it.
But now, how do you do that? What you do that is understand there's been a huge redistribution of wealth in the last 30 years from the middle class to the top 1/10 of 1%. Now, the other thing that you understand globally is the horrendous imbalance in terms of wealth in the world. As I mentioned earlier, the top 1% will own more than the bottom 99% in a year or so. That's absurd. That takes you to programs like the IMF and so forth and so on. But I think what we need to be doing as a global economy is making sure that people in poor countries have decent paying jobs, have education, have healthcare, have nutrition for their people. That is a moral responsibility.
Yeah, we're not doing that for this country. He's talking about doing that for other countries, so they don't want to come here. But he's not going to tell you what's actually doing it. It's our policies in Central and South America that are destabilizing the region. And Joe Biden's doing it. And Barack Obama did it before that.
But you don't do that, as some would suggest, by lowering the standard of American workers, which has already gone down very significantly.
So there you go. There's Bernie Sanders, sounding a lot like what people think Tucker Carlson sounds like.
I like as they're crying, like, yeah, sure, a lot of these black Americans are poor by American standards, but they should stop complaining when they see those people
right?
crossing the border.
That's right. So here is Bill Clinton. Want to hear what Bill? I don't know if he sounds like Tucker Carlson, but let's see.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace, as recommended by the commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of law.
Of fucking corporate tools who want to shit and demonize and scapegoat these people as we destabilize their countries.
What alien, like, have you heard the word aliens used that much? And, like, he didn't even say dreamers.
Right? No, that's called demonizing immigrants and blaming them for our problems. And Bill, that wasn't the only time Bill Clinton, by the way, there's more to this at the end.
All Americans. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
And they all stand. There's Bill Clinton doing his best Tucker Carlson. That's Bill Clinton doing his best Tucker Carlson. And believe me, I could show you video after video after video like that. I can show you videos of Hillary Clinton advocating for building a wall between us and Mexico. I could also show you this.
Because we have finally gotten more police officers on the street. That was one of the goals that the president had when he pushed the crime bill.
And that works out for black and brown people, doesn't it? When you put more cops on the street and put more people in prison. They exploded the prison population. At the same time, they were gutting welfare. And they had their sister soldier moment. And they were demonizing immigrants as they were deregulating Wall Street, which would crash the economy within 10 years, hurting who the worst? Black and brown people.
By the way, what do you think prison labor does to the wages
What?
even more
What do
than
you-
illegal?
Great point, Kurt. Great point. What do you think prison labor does to the wages of Americans? And who championed prison labor? The Clintons and the Democrats. And Joe Biden.
And Kamala.
And Kamala.
Now, least you think I am endorsing the Republican Party, let me go on record repeating my stance. If you're fully informed on the complicity that must exist between the Republicans and the Democrats to keep such an inept party as the Clintons still viable to this day, when me and my friends were protesting every Saturday and Sunday against abortion and against the Clintons, then for the same thing now, my position is if you vote, it could be the mark of the beast and you could be voting for the status quo because your vote doesn't matter. The only thing this Christian movement needs to do is get 100 million pledge or whatever votes Trump got last time, and the disappointed people like the Jimmy Dore, who is the liberal we're listening to right now, and sign and say, we're not voting. We're not voting. Just don't vote because we don't care. You're not going to change. Don't tell me this Supreme Court matters so much more than every other one. I was born when there were 48 states. I'll be 64 years old in October. I haven't changed. I've been fighting this all my life. It's the same rhetoric. Absolutely the same rhetoric. This midterm within play, we can control the Supreme Court. You see the dangers of the Supreme Court. It's the same story. The reason I'm showing you this is to let you know that some liberals, they're very disappointed. They see what's going on, and it doesn't just help to just dismiss everybody out of hand if they don't vote or have a MAGA hat or understand how stupid the Democrats are. How could we miss it? If we keep acting like every new argument, I'm still hung up. Why was it a big deal? I went to the VA. Why did I have to save boxes of proof through Manifest Destinies? They had separate lists where they were trying to kill people. They were caught in it in my era. And that's old news. Nobody ever cared. That's 5 years, 6 years old news. Yeah, they killed some vets. Who cares? You're supposed to fucking care. All you Republicans were supposed to fucking care. I volunteered my son to follow in my veteran footsteps like I followed in my father and his 9 veteran brothers' footsteps. Documented proof. We offered our children to the fucking beast because we listened to Rush Limbaugh, and every election was the next most important election. How long? Must the insanity go on? And when we talk to our friends, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. And we're always happy. See, you're arguing with the pro now, right? Because they're so stupid. All we just need is one person one time to sit down. Has it ever happened? No. And now they think you're a fool because you believe in flat earth. And some of that other Q stuff you've been talking to your family about. We listened to the lady mock the Bible, and oh my goodness, Jesus is so bad. Who's controlling my uterus? Not God, unless you want it to be that way. And that passes as both sides of the story at the Portland community colleges. Thank you, Vicki. Yeah, we've been, you know, it's kind of what's getting me more and more upset. We just can't take that stuff anymore. I know. Everybody's got to get, you know, realize these things are happening now. Did you see the thing was worrying about, is the NASDAQ going to fall another 45%? That's a lot. And these people are messed up. We're clinging to God, or we are not.
The illegal aliens are positively greedy compared to what the prisoners get.
That's right. That's right. But keep your focus on a news host instead of people who actually have power. But there's more to this. Watch this.
Passed in 1994. He promised 100,000 police. We're moving in that direction.
Oh, she cried that night on 60 Minutes when she forgave Bill for his one-time indiscretion. And it's over, and they moved on together. They're in love. They've been called to change the world. I remember when she was this young.
But we can see it already makes a difference, because if we have more police interacting with people, having them on the streets, we can prevent crimes. We can prevent petty crimes from turning into something worse. But we also have to have an organized effort against gangs. Just as in a previous generation, we had an organized effort against the mob. We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, just but first we have to bring them to heel. And the president has asked the FBI to launch a very concerted effort against gangs everywhere.
Can't we just hire them at the CIA? It sounds like they'd be great.
Yeah. Why don't we just... So, I don't know, does that sound like Tucker Carlson? That we got to get the FBI on these black kids because they're super predators. Black kids are super predators. And they have no empathy. They have no anything like a normal human being. And we could talk about how they got there. You mean you could talk about the horrible racism in America that led to this, or the criminal justice policies that split families up, that over-police black and brown poor people and put them in prison at much higher rates, devastating their communities for the same drug use that white people use 16 times more cocaine. That anyway, it's just not, but she doesn't care. These are people who are propagandists, who are appealing to the worst in people and demonizing and scapegoating the people with no power in our society, the victims of capitalism, racism, and our government. She's demonizing them and scapegoating them. That's what Hillary Clinton did. That's what Bill Clinton did. And then, of course, you know what Barack Obama and Joe Biden did. They built cages and put them in it. So you can go ahead and pretend that Tucker Carlson is worse than Bill Clinton or Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton or the Barack Obama or the Democratic Party or corporate America in general. But that would make you a repeater of propaganda and a dupe.
You know, even Ann Coulter says corporate America is at fault for the... like, even Ann Coulter brings up corporate America when that illegal immigrant debate...
Oh, really?
People, yeah. I had her a long time ago. I questioned. I'm like, don't you think it's because she was, yeah, it is. I don't know.
You said, don't you think that illegal immigration has to do with corporate America's policies?
Yeah, like, I don't understand.
She said, because it does.
yeah, she goes, absolutely it does. And they never, it took me aback because I had never heard anyone say it other than her. Like, I was genuinely shocked because I don't understand why you can't just go to these companies and be like, all right, who do you hire? It seems like you could solve that real quick without a wall, but, you know, I don't think they want to do that.
So there'll be a shooting tomorrow, and they'll blame Joe Rogan. And then there'll be another shooting the next day, and they'll blame me. And then there'll be another shooting the next day. I mean, it's just goes against the establishment. That's when they hate him. And they hate Tucker Carlson because he every once in a while tells the truth about because he does tell the truth about foreign policy. They hate him because he told the truth about Libya, Syria. Well, I don't know about Libya, but he told the truth about Syria, and he told the truth about Ukraine. And they can't have that. They just can't have that. Just like when Joe Rogan was questioning the COVID narrative, they had to make you think he was the worst person in the world because he's going against a big money grip by the corporation. War is a big money grip. So was the COVID narrative. And so that's what they do. And don't take the bait. Don't just keep your eye on the people with power. Keep your eyes on the people with power. Right? And they only get angry at Tucker Carlson, not when he actually says horrible shit. They get angry at him when he says stuff that goes against the establishment. That's when they hate him. And by the way, I have many views I'm sure that Tucker Carlson disagrees with and finds odious. And likewise. The point is, in order to move forward, the populist left and the populist right are going to have to come together on things we agree on. And if somebody agrees with me to end a war, I don't care who it is, if it's Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, Rand Paul, or Mitch McConnell, I'll work with them to end a war. And if you're not willing to do that, you're a willing dupe of the military-industrial complex. So I'll work with anybody to do that. What's
how
that?
much you want to bet? I mean, I don't know, but I would bet that this nut job shooter, much like, you know, Parkland and dozens others, somebody called in and reported this guy's a danger and someone should check into it. And they didn't check into it because they're busy doing like phony.
Oh, by the way, I'm pretty sure I did read something that they knew this guy had made it. Did you look into that? The guy in Buffalo, did he make a threat at his school before? I could have sworn I read something like that today in relation to this case.
Every time, dude, you read it, and it's never like, oh, we had no idea. Like, no, we called several law enforcement, and nobody did anything. And then meanwhile, while they do these entrapment things that they could do a press conference about, you know, like a fake kidnapping that's what they spend their time on.
And what people are going to do now is they're going to clip stuff I said, and they're going to make videos saying that, oh, Jimmy Dore is defending Tucker Carlson's racism.
Too bad, Jimmy.
That Tucker Carlson's views on immigrants and are in lockstep with Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and Joe Biden's policies. And I'm reminding people, don't take your eye off the ball. Don't let the establishment distract you with hatred for a news.
No, don't try it. Yeah, we don't need you to tell us what to do, Jimmy. Here's another liberal organization. I've been watching some liberal news. This is probably just some song I don't want to hear.
All right, we got a bombshell story to talk about now in the Julian Assange case. The CIA plot to kill Julian Assange has some eye-opening new details today. Now, as you know, the UK government is very, very close to extraditing Julian Assange to the United States, where he will, of course, be tried for war crimes, right? He will be tried for espionage, violating the Espionage Act, which is total garbage. And likely, he will be, unfortunately, snuffed out by the U.S. government because they've already told us that's their intention. You don't have to take my word for it. High-ranking U.S. officials have admitted that there is a plot to take Julian Assange's life. more on that in a moment. We'll get to that in a moment. But remember that for the context here, Julian Assange is a journalist who didn't hack anyone's computer and steal documents. No, he published documents, leaked videos that prove the U.S. was committing war crimes. Right? That's what his
So let's keep that in context. Everyone who goes like, oh, I heard Julian Assange was charged with rape. Come on. Study these cases, because isn't it important that they want to kill the man that exposed to the world the truth?
Remember that for the context here, Julian Assange is a journalist who didn't hack anyone's computer and steal documents. No, he published documents, leaked videos that prove the U.S. was committing war crimes. Right? That's what his great crime is here.
Well, he's not been charged with any crime. He's
Right.
being held, right, in the hopes that the government can do that to him, in the government's hopes, but he has not been charged.
And of course, the U.S. continues to commit war crimes. I mean, this continues to happen. And WikiLeaks has uncovered this information. They didn't steal the documents. They were given the documents that they published. He's a journalist, right? And arguably at the highest level of journalism, right? Holding powerful people to account. Well, two big developments I want to draw your attention to. First is a stunning letter written to the Home Secretary. Here is the letter to the Home Secretary for Human Rights in Europe. This is from the Commissioner of Human Rights. I'm writing to you, to the Home Office in the UK. Now, of course, Priti Patel is the minister who is going to write off on sending Julian Assange to the United States. So now this new human rights letter coming in just a short time ago. I'm writing to you regarding the case of Julian Assange. I've been following the developments of Mr. Assange's case with great attention in the judicial proceedings so far. The focus has mostly been on Mr. Assange's personal circumstances, right? Then goes on to explain that, in particular, my view of the indictment by the United States against Mr. Assange raises important questions about the protection of those published classified information, those that publish public classified information that are in the public interest, including information that exposes human rights violations. The broad and vague nature of the allegations against Mr. Assange and of the offense listed in the indictment are troubling, as many of them concern activities at the core of investigative journalism in Europe and beyond. Consequently, allowing Mr. Assange's extradition on the basis would have a chilling effect on media freedom and could ultimately hamper the press in performing its task as purveyor of information and public watchdog in democratic societies. Now, he goes on to say, as I previously stated, it's my position that taking into account both these wider implications and the concerns raised by the independent experts about Mr. Assange's treatment upon extradition, the government of the United Kingdom was not allowed extradition to the United States. I therefore call upon you to decide against the extradition of Mr. Assange. So right there, I mean, it doesn't get any hotter than that. I call upon you to not extradite Julian Assange to the United States. You should not do that. He's not alone, of course. There was a huge protest yesterday outside the Home Office in the United Kingdom demanding that Julian Assange be kept in the UK and extradited to the United States. The protests erupted. And remember, this is the same United States government, by the way, that is actively trying to pursue war crimes charges against the Russian government. Like the hypocrisy here for the invasion of Ukraine. Like, okay, we're going to arrest a journalist for uncovering war crimes, and then we're also going to try to prosecute Russia for war crimes. Like, double standard hypocrisy here. By the way, the International Criminal Court, of course, where the United States would want to try these war crimes, is something we have actively avoided being a part of because we are worried that we would be tried for our own war crimes. Like, the hypocrisy, the double standard here is just like, thank you, cut it with a knife. Of course, the other part of this big story in the past 24 hours is the wife of Julian Assange, Stella Assange, video entitled "The CIA Plot to Kill Julian Assange, My Husband." Perhaps another reason not to send him to the U.S., where he'll likely be killed by the U.S. government. And she lays out, of course, the bombshell story about the move to kill Julian Assange by the United States government. The CIA developed plans to kidnap Julian Assange. Per this report, WikiLeaks was a complete obsession for CIA Director Mike Pompeo. And as she points out in this video, over 30 different people are on the record talking about this specifically. And here is what she had to say about this.
The position of the UK right now is that it will extradite a publisher to the country that conspired to murder him. How can the UK government even contemplate the extradition of the man who the US was trying to assassinate? This assassination plot was as revenge for what WikiLeaks had published. When I read the story, I was relieved in a way, because this is the reality that Julian has been facing. And there has been a lot of gaslighting. For years when he was in the embassy, the refrain was that Julian was paranoid, that no one was trying to prosecute him. The only one that was keeping him in the embassy was himself. And as soon as he was arrested, the true reality was there for everyone to see. So it was extremely important that this came to light. The story has over 30 US intelligence officials, including very senior and named, going on record and saying that the US government was actively plotting to assassinate Julian inside the UK. This is incredible. This is a country plotting to assassinate a journalist because of what he has published. This is precisely what the UK government criticizes in other states. Conspiring to murder a journalist is wrong. It's wrong if Russia does it, and it's wrong if the United States does it too. But there's a lot of this story that we still don't know. How much did the UK government know? How far was the UK government willing to go along with the US government's plans under the CIA directorship of Mike Pompeo? These are questions that remain unanswered.
So yes, part of the story is that more than 30 former officials say that the former CIA director, Mike Pompeo, was apparently motivated to get even with WikiLeaks following its publication of all this sensitive information, that the CIA hacking tools specifically, which the agency considered.
And, you know, as we look at things, and we, you know, as I want you to take a look, they strongly support abortion. Now, we look at Christians as, you know, salt of the earth who are just on the wide road, but aren't they sharing the wide road with them? I believe we could re-engage these people with a lucid argument on the spark of life, of when life begins, on not let them hear the Bible from God's way as not being the meanie or Jesus as, you know, that Messiah dude, you know. But looking at it, these are humans too that know not what they do. What do we do with them in our thoughts, in our prayers, in our daily lives? We know some of them will be separating also. They share much of what I agree medically on how to take care of their bodies. They know what works. They obviously are weary of the government now on both sides, as are you. They've been more committed in marriage for longer than a lot of Christians I know. They're definitely controlled up. Assange is controlled up. Snowden is the only person I'll guarantee you who's not controlled up is me. I know everywhere I've been, and I am not in the pocket of anybody like that. This has been a real, you know, life. You're living a real life that, if properly told, would be multi-volume set and good guy, bad guy. Some of the time this, some of the time that. It is our life going forward. But like, I don't want people to forget that 5 years ago, my predicament in like, why is Paco worried about going back to the VA? They admitted they were trying to kill. And they basically were setting people up that if you walked in and you were on that list, you end up homeless. I've got the records. All they needed to do was make a phone call to Colorado Springs. And not even a doctor, but a nurse said, nah, all you guys are drug users. And I wasn't. Not. Unless they consider my sacred herb a drug, which I don't. But not only did we forget about the veterans who the Republicans and the Constitutionalists are supposed to love, and you do remember there were two lists, and then they rehired those people with back pay that they fired symbolically. Right. Yeah. And that I wear this because they tried to kill my son, and the next crew that replaced it, they died because of using faulty equipment as spying in Afghanistan. These are real lives. Let's refresh our memory of something else I don't want you to forget. That's how you spell withdrawal?
This is a very serious issue that they're going to be facing in the coming months, which is unfortunate, as we all know, because we often discuss all of the serious domestic issues, including what happened late last night at the United States Supreme Court in an outrageous, just totally outrageous decision not stopping this Texas law, which actually caused an emotion like that, the dissent, to just point out that it's viable. So we're dealing with people's preoccupation with how we get out of Afghanistan when our own country's in a mess.
I thought that the Biden administration's mistake was not taking a good look at what it would take to get out, get everybody out, get all of the allies out, and just say, look, we're not leaving until we do that.
Why didn't somebody do that? Why didn't somebody do that? You know what? I'm going to interrupt just for a second to put a link in. And if anybody wants to come in and tell me, give me some ideas to bounce off. Tell me why, people. Why do we need people wondering why did we just have to throw up our arms and run away and leave people to die in Afghanistan? And how can we, less than 8 months later, teach the world how to win in Ukraine?
We're not going to set an artificial deadline that can then be used to make us leave things behind or by. Biden says he doesn't want a forever war. Well, a forever exit, I think, is his word. But this is worse, where we left people behind, Americans and allies, and not to speak of the millions of dollars of military equipment. His administration should have just said, you know what, I know what deal you made with Trump, but I'm not Trump. And so here's the deal. We don't need, if you want us out of here, you have to expedite us getting all of the people out, because that's what it's going to take.
enclosing the only airport that is secure is beyond me. And again, I'm just like everybody else. I'm just listening and reading. But I do not see a single justification that makes sense to me to close the military airport where you could have gotten everybody out.
Well, that's the thing. You could have gotten everybody out that way, man.
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. A warm welcome from the ANU Center for Arab and Islamic Studies and from our the Near East Policy Forum with whom we are organizing this panel. I'm Karim Achir, and I'm the director of the center, and I have my co-host tonight, Samia.
Are you guys hearing this all right? Because I'm very surprised that I can't turn it up a little louder than that. I just wonder if it's the videos, or I'm going to have to take a look at my speakers here. Scandalous.
Thanks for everything you do, any donation that was ever sent.
Wow.
If you forgot to mention this, or why haven't you talked about that? You know, I take that into consideration. Even if it's abusive, a lot of people are emotional, like if they see some sort of negative slant, you know, because we are not our mistakes, as I've said a million times over. You know, they just disregard it. Well, this person's being negative. I'm not going to read it. I actually do read the quote negative stuff. If there's something demonstrable in there, and I can actually be, I am objective in analyzing it. Facts, logic, and wisdom above anything else. You know, you're not gonna, as the saying goes, take life too seriously because you're not going to get out of it alive. That doesn't mean I'm not a highly serious person, and I'm a really serious person. Actually, I'm serious too much. I think part of that is because I have to do something myself. Obviously, I'm fat, squishy, and covered in tattoos, and the rest of me is kind of like body fat. I'm not digging ditch. I did work really hard yesterday laying tile, which I've never laid tile before, and man, that's a miserable job. First, I had to lay down a primer on the particle board and wait for that to dry, and then get on my hands and knees, and also to bending over, lighting those tiles up so they all fit perfectly like a jigsaw puzzle. But I just wanted to say thanks. Make this video, thank you. That I appreciate it. I really do. I don't have any vices. Obviously, I'm too fat. That's because I'm sitting behind the computer too much. But yesterday, I said I was out in the deep woods, laying down tile with no air conditioning. It was just kind of pretty darn hot, too. Sweating my guts out. So, getting out and breathing the fresh air was wonderful, too. Something actually stung me. I think it was a spider. And it welted up, and it started itching really bad, and then, it gets to the gross parts, but man, it's kind of painful now. I mean, it's not that bad, but I was sweeping up rat peeps, little rat dinkies. I was sweeping those out. Breathing in all that nastiness. So, I got my nose buried behind the books all the time. I have a computer too much. I am rambling on too much in this video. I just wanted to express my great gratitude to anybody and everybody who made a donation or been kind or supportive. I appreciate that. I actually like meeting you all. I never get the chance to meet anybody. I still feel bad because about 2 weeks ago. Hello, everybody. I was able to create the even more powerful. Itself is shaped basically like the toroidal field of a magnet. You'll see something interesting, and then I'll zoom in. Here we go. Let's actually see it. Now, the interesting thing, you can actually see that shape. Isn't this fascinating? The holography. Now, you know the hologram on your credit card, right? Well, a true art hologram, which most people have never seen, is about 100 times better than that, if not more, depending on how good the true art hologram is. Now, what we actually have here is less than a few microns thin. In other words, the liquid, there's just a few drops of liquid between these two pieces of ultra flat glass. And once you actually press the glass together, most of the liquid squishes up the side, you wipe it off, and it leaves stains on your fingerprints. So what we actually have here is across this this is about, roughly about 10 square inches of glass in total. We have less than about, maybe like 1/50th of a drop of liquid, maybe 1/50th. And yet we have incredible holographic, specifically this is magnetoholography. Now, of course, you can
Do you recognize the analema, the Mobius strips?
This is literally just LEDs, like for the edge lighting of your cabinet. So there's just light shining inwards. By the way, about 2 years ago, people said, well, you're just looking at the number of lights here. It's like, that's not true. I created one of these devices where the light pours in from the sun, so only one light source. So the sun was able to wrap around in a tent-like structure and shoot inwards into the cell, and you get the exact same thing from a single light source, which is the sun. No batteries, no LEDs, nothing, just the sun powering it. Now, the ceramic or the speaker magnet, of course, is squared off, so it's obviously not rounded. It doesn't matter what shape the magnet is. The actual centrifugal divergent force and motion vectors that actually show the magnetic and dielectric field. This is the reason why we see lines, but you see constructive and destructive interference is perfectly toroidal or donut shaped. And of course, the negative image of a donut shape is, of course, a hyperboloid or an hourglass shape. So if you actually take the negative image of this, you will see the dielectric. Now, this is a really weak magnet. I'll show you a really powerful magnet here in a second. I'll show you how much more sensitive this structure, this new super sensitive supercell is. But look, as I actually skim along the edge, now realize that the liquid showing the constructive and destructive interference is infinitely thinner than a human hair. And what we're doing is we're using the light in the dispersed ferrofluid. The ferrofluid is not clumping, by the way. The dispersed ferrofluid is all through this. The only reason why you're seeing light stripes in certain areas and dark stripes in others is constructive and destructive interference between the magnetic and dielectric. I'll explain this in other videos than I have in the past, but also in my book. You see these little bright spots right here. There's little tiny bright spots along the lines of intersection. You see those here? Let me actually zoom in a little better. You see these little bright spots right here, here, here. You notice they occur at lines of intersection, right? Actually, now this supercell is so sensitive that I actually have to keep moving the magnet, otherwise it'll burn in. You can see like a light burn in mark. It's not literally burn, I just call it burn because it's so sensitive, the powerful magnetic field. Even though it's a weak ferrite magnet, it's so powerful that it's destroying the supercell. Like I said, that's why I've got it taped so I can take it apart really quickly. Let's go top down. That looks like a black hole, huh? Here you see the hypertrochoid pattern, like you see in a dream catcher. The pattern you see in the center of a dream catcher is a hypertrochoidal pattern. Let's actually take the speaker magnet out, and let's do a ring magnets, really powerful ring magnets like this destroy it rather easy. Let's take this little square cube neodymium iron boron. Okay, let's place it there. Also, too, I can place it on top. Let's place it on top for a second. Okay, there we go. Zoom in. Doesn't matter whether I place it on the top or the bottom. The magnetic field penetrates through absolutely everything. Absolutely everything. Let's place it underneath. Supercell here. There you go. Focus. There we go. Let's zoom in a little bit.
He's demonstrating the difference between the ring magnet, which would look like a washer to some of you men and women who are familiar with, like, if you want some extra strength up against the wall, or your screw will fit better or something. You know what a washer is.
You can actually see rings along the, looks like an owl's face, doesn't it? This is the secret of Mother Nature here. This is the actual construct of destructive interference. Here's one pole, here's another pole. But a magnet doesn't actually have poles. What it has is the inverse and counter space, which is specifically force of motion. See, centrifugal divergent magnetic field, which of course is not literally being emitted from the magnet. It's literally the ether itself under polarized deformation from the field of the point source singularity that is what defines the magnet. Because the magnet is not defined by what is quantitative, rather by what is qualitative. And I've explained this 1,000 times, and also to, including my book, to show you one pole. The magnet here. Sorry about that. Shaky video. If I zoom in here, you can actually see little concentric circles in the middle. Do you notice how small the black spot is? Of course, black is the dielectric. This is constructive and destructive interference between the magnetic and the dielectric. This is literally the lotus blossom. It kind of looks like a lotus blossom, doesn't it? But specifically, from up above, it looks like a dream catcher. It's a hypertoroidal pattern of constructive and destructive interference. So the interplay between magnetic and dielectric, because magnetism is the dielectric field. Let me give you a perfect.
Yeah, Edna, I was talking about that show earlier. And this, the dielectric field and this new toroidal fluid is very important. I want you to do that. That's me. That's my other. I can still go on the phone to my old channel, the one that they took down. This one had over 4,000 videos and 9,000 subscribers, but that's still, when I'm going to type in the chat, that is still Flat Earth Nation Armageddon Past. It is like one of the ones I made when I knew it was coming. I was like second strike, second time. I wanted to show this. Yeah, this show was really good. And we did find out that Randy, my big brother's in his last week of work, and we were talking about it. And you know what's going to happen? He's going to retire. He is retiring. He's being forced to retire because even after 30 years, he's not going to go against his medical beliefs, and he doesn't need the money. So he's retiring at 65 instead of 67 or whatever. And now he's going on vacation to meet up with his family. He's like one of the youngest, and then the other actual youngest is already retired. So now he is retired, and they're going to play cards. And one of the things that hits me is he's really good at cards and stuff like that. And up in the Midwest where I'm from, I lived about 20 miles from the border. It was closer for me. It was easier for me to go see the Milwaukee baseball games and basketball games than it was to go to Chicago. Although it was like 90 miles to Milwaukee, 70 miles to Chicago, it was faster to go to Milwaukee. Well, he's going to be kicking their butt and hearing how stupid he is because he believes in flat earth and was forced to retire early when he's still strong as an ox, because that's what it's about. He needs more money. He's going to, he's so busy right now, he doesn't need more things to do. I'm glad he's going to get some time off. I'm sure it is, guided by the Lord. We all know it's going to be guided by the Lord, but it's a big deal. And dealing with family in the midst of what, obviously, in my world, it's not getting enough press. That the stock market's crashing. We're in an inflation. I know some of you feel it, but if they really showed everything about, and I'm not saying, this is the end, it's going to be Armageddon, we're not going to go over it. No, this is a time of separation where we're going to get a pretty good glimpse of how bad it's going to be in a few years. We should already know it. I had somebody on the other day when we were talking about gold, and I was reminiscing about how I used to, people would always say, you should buy this gold now. It's only $400 for an ounce. It's going to be up to 2,000 someday, and gold was going to be $100, and and because in the back of our mind we were young, and boy, it was going to be bad someday. But I never realized it was going to be like children aren't assigned a gender at birth anymore. They wait until they decide it. So we knew it was going to be bad when gold gets to be $2,000, and it may as well be. It's been above 2,000 before, and it's at above $1,800 now. People like myself, people like we knew it was going to be bad, but at 30, I didn't see myself living it that bad at 64. And I'm so thankful that I've been able to maintain my faith in a solid walk, and that like now, if I haven't, been building up my faith and planning on this for so long, it's hard to believe that it's all coming true. My dad would be very excited. There should be books written about my father. It's just crazy. He was right about almost everything.
Quick analogy, and this is disruptive to the supercell, is this really powerful N60 gas magnet. People don't understand that actually a more powerful magnet actually has a smaller spatial magnetic field. The reason being, the only kind of good analogy I can come up with where people would understand it in their brains is that when you amp up one thing, you also amp up another. So you can't actually make a more powerful magnet without creating a more powerful dielectric field. And by creating a more powerful dielectric field, and this is kind of like the cheap man's version of a black hole, is literally the center black portion will be huge on this really, really powerful N60 gas boron. Also, too, the spatial field is smaller. This is why people buy really powerful magnets. They say, I don't understand. I bought a really powerful magnet, and I think I got screwed because the spatial field around it. In other words, you have to get a lot closer to a piece of metal to feel the quote-unquote attraction. By the way, there's no such thing as magnetic attraction. It's dielectric acceleration. Magnetism is by definition and denotation force and motion. Let me actually, move it over here, and I'll show you how big. See how huge the black hole is, the black section of the dielectric portal is on this powerful magnet. And also, too, you can see, you can get a little bit better focus, concentric circles. You actually see shades. It goes from black to dark red to orange to lighter orange to almost yellow. This is the magnet that will very quickly. Also, too, you can see these bright points right here. You see that? You see how quickly it's destroying the cell? This is what I mean by burn-in. It's not literally burnt, it's just literally causing. This is why I have to take the supercell apart when you use really powerful magnets. But maybe this one went over a little bit. Sorry about that. Here we go. This is all in real time. Like I said, this is not a projection device. There's nothing being fed into this. There's nothing inside the black casing other than 2 pieces of glass, 1/50th of a drop of liquid, and these Lowe's Home Depot LEDs, which are shooting light into the cell. If I get really steep on it, you can actually see the holographic nature of the cell. I can't leave it sitting there for that long because I'll just have to rebuild the cell. That's no problem. Let's save the best for last. Sorry about the jittery video, but I'm obviously doing this handheld. Let me use this neodymium iron boron ring magnet. I think it's like a 10 millimeter thick or 5 millimeters thick neodymium, really powerful. We'll quickly fry this supercell. It's already frying it actually. The lift off of it, you can actually see burn marks. It's only about 5 minutes to rebuild it. The liquid doesn't cost anything, not really. Since it only takes a few drops to build one, big deal to rebuild it. But look at the magnetoholography. If you actually had this in your hand, you'd be surprised. Now look at this. If I get it on a steep angle, even though you don't have this in your hands and you can't see what it is I'm talking about, look at the holographic depth. You actually have this trough, sloping towards this null point with the entire, and of course, the magnetic field of the ring magnet is
Okay, good. You got a good, keep that good visual in your mind. Keep that good visual in your mind. And we're going to go back like that, back in time. That was not cool or really informative. When we go back in time, I'm looking up a video. Oh, never mind. I remember. See, I was made myself remember the easiest way. And since, it's just really, it was really a good video. And I never really, I've listened to some when they talk about the constellations are a reflection of the earth, or there's something on the moon that's a reflection. Now, Randy has sent me a video that I'm going to be showing again, and it's part of what Mr. Randy Man sent me. Now, I wonder if I should show that video with me and Randy or just show the video. I only, I started late, so I'm probably going to go about another 25, 30 minutes, and that's enough for you to get these visuals in your mind and help me out, especially with the toroidal field that we were just witnessing. So we'll do it that way.
Welcome to a new look at an ancient view of the universe. This is my new geocentric plane flat Earth enclosed 3D model using Google SketchUp. In it, I've taken inspiration from ancient cosmologies like the Egyptians, the Vedas, the Hebrew, Japanese, Enoch, Mayan, and many others, including modern flat earthers like Josh Waugh, who made W-A-H last name on YouTube, who made a video showing the astroplate, demonstrating how a reflective firmament can explain star trails in the southern hemicycle using an astroplate. So what I've done is made a 3D model here with the astroplate, and I want to show how it matches the ancient cosmologies. So if we look here at the Vedas down here, you can see an Earth plane that extends 4 billion miles. It's huge. But we're only looking at this Earth plane in the center, this little green chunk in the center. That's our Earth plane. Notice it has a chariot for the sun, the moon, planets, but it has a starry plane up here, which is an astroplane that I've added up top up here. In Mount Meru, I put as a vortex style. We'll look over at the Egyptians. They have a similar cosmology. They have Nut, which is the female who holds the stars above her. And the same thing with the ancient Hebrew conception of the universe. You have Sheol, which is Hades, or the underworld. And I don't depict that here in this model, but it's got the same thing. Water's above with the firmament and everything between it, but I'm explaining all of that in a more realistic view using an astroplate. So how does this astroplate work? All right, let me get rid of the Earth plane, firmament, and atmoplane, vortex. And now we can look at how this works compared to the luminaries and rotation itself. Alright, I have an animation here from January 1st, 2016 at midnight to January 5th, 2016 at 6 p.m. If I start playing this animation, it rotates the astroplate, and we can see that from the top half, it rotates clockwise, and from below, it rotates anti-clockwise. And that matches star trails of what we see in the sky. But how does that work compared to observations? So if we pause it here and bring back the Earth plane, and Google SketchUp runs a little slow, so you might lose some features in the astroplate. And we come to Texas, Texas, where I'm from, which is over here. I want to show how this model matches observations. All right, there we go. Now, due to perspective, the ground comes up and blocks most of what we see in the sky. And this is simple perspective, like looking down a corridor, you can't see the other end, the walls converge, and the sky comes down and the ground comes up until they meet in the center. So if we rotate the astroplate, then you can see, it's losing its features, that it's rotating counterclockwise here. And if I bring back the firmament and look over in this direction, you'll notice that I can see the top half here, but on the bottom half, I can't see it at all. And so if we switch to stellarium, we can see that looking north.
Yeah, I think this is his strongest argument.
This blue line represents the equator in the sky, or the cutoff point of the astroplate, and the red line represents the ecliptic. So if we move time, you can see that it's counterclockwise in the northern, and when we look south, it's clockwise in the southern. Remember, this blue line separates it. So when we look west, we end up seeing two opposite rotations in opposite hemicircles. Northern's counter, southern's...
And I want you to remember those toroidal fields with the different types of magnets. Remember the cube magnet?
Clockwise, but together they meet as everything sets in the west and rises in the east. So this is simple perspective. Everything's rising from east to west, so when you look south, east is to your left, so it appears clockwise. When you look north, east is to your right, so it appears.
Wow, you know what? That whole thing, that was a throwaway line for me, but really consider a cube magnet when the cube magnetized body of Christ 1500 by 1500 comes down after the fire to rebuild. Where is it now? It's still controlling the swastika. That's SVSW, swastika. Breathe in, breathe out.
Counterclockwise. And this matches the observations made here. The only difference is you can't...
Honest to goodness, I'm as surprised as you are, but you're only going to find that on Flat Earth Nation, Mud Flood was Armageddon.
The southern section, which is reflecting off the...
That's just the way it is.
Here to be down here. And looking directly south, we would see a chunk of that over there, and then looking west, we would see everything setting. And back north,
show the sun and the moon.
Some of Ursa Minor and a few other constellations. Alright, so if we come back up here, hopefully the astroplate works with me. I restarted it to see if it'll work better this time. Turn on keyframe animation. Okay, so this astroplate rotates 90 degrees every frame, so that completes a full circuit in 4 frames. So I have every day listed by 4 frames, say from midnight, 6 a.m., noon, 6 p.m., midnight, 6 a.m., noon, 6 p.m. And they're accurate to stellarium. So if I come over here to stellarium and I pull up the date, and I go down to January 1st at midnight, get rid of the floor. The sun is in Sagittarius. You can kind of see it, but it's between the legs of Sagittarius. So here I've put the sun between the legs of Sagittarius. Same with Mercury, Saturn, Venus.
And I want you to all notice that the connecting parts of the lines, when he'll zoom in here in 1 second, that as he's outlining the sun, as it makes its circular course, is a series of straight lines. That's important.
Saturn, Venus, all in the same places. There's Mercury over here, Saturn, Venus, by Scorpius, Mars, and then Jupiter. Oh, we got the moon over here right on the edge, but Jupiter is on the other side of that blue line. It's on the north face, while everything else is on the south face. So for here, Jupiter is going to have to be, see there's the moon right on the edge, but Jupiter is going to have to be on the other side, on the underside, because Jupiter is on the north face, while everything else is on the south face. Alright, so I'm going to explain sidereal day and solar day on this geocentric plane model. A solar day is when the sun completes a full circuit around the North Pole and ends up right back where it started with relation to the Earth plane. A sidereal day is when a star along the equator of the astroplate, or the edge of the astroplate, completes a full circuit and back to where it started with relation to the Earth plane. Now, a sidereal day, which is the astroplate rotating, is 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4.1 seconds, while a solar day, which is the sun full rotation around the North Pole backwards started compared to the Earth plane, is exactly 24 hours. Now, the reason for that is because the sun proceeds along the ecliptic, which is this line right here, that passes through the 12 constellations of the zodiac, like Aquarius, Capricornus, Sagittarius, Scorpius, Libra, Virgo, and then there's another 6 on the other side. On the northern face, these are the southern face, or the winter solstice. And since it's January 1st, December 21st would have been about right there, which would have been the December solstice. And on the other side, right in the center, is the June solstice. Alright, so the reason that you have solar and sidereal days is because in 24 hours, if I just skip 4 frames, the astroplane won't turn because it'll make a full rotation. We'll see that the sun actually proceeded along the ecliptic during that full rotation. So when the sun rotates with the astroplate, it's proceeding, which means going backward, moving opposite the direction of the rotation. So if the astroplate is rotating clockwise, the sun is proceeding counterclockwise. Now the sun and the moon both proceed counterclockwise, and if I move another 24 hours, you'll notice the moon moves a lot, while the sun barely moves a little. And another 24 hours, same thing. Moon moves a lot, sun moves a little. And if we come to midnight on the 5th, we see that the sun is almost on the arm of Sagittarius, while the moon is in Libra. If we jump over here to Stellarium, to date and time, and we jump to the 5th, you can see exactly that. The moon is in Libra, and the sun, get that oriented properly, it's the lowest. The sun is on that leg of Sagittarius. The first it was here, second, third, fourth, fifth. And so the sun will continue to proceed along the ecliptic, as well as the moon, but the moon moves twice as fast as the sun, so the moon will lap the sun inevitably. Notice how the sun is perfectly on the red line, because it's on the ecliptic, while the moon is away from the ecliptic, beside the ecliptic. The moon crosses over the ecliptic right here. We're at the edge of the astroplate. So it's on this side of the ecliptic now. And
I think I remember him saying that was the new moon of the 21st of January. So it'd be right. It could be a new moon when it eclipses, or something blacks out as it goes around the analemma, and something new appears at the same time, slowly, gradually becoming full, waxing, waning until its next trip through an amelenema-shaped Mobius strip.
This is that blue line, which is from the south face to the north face. It'll cross the ecliptic and end up on this side. And then same thing when it's on the below half. It'll cross the ecliptic.
Somebody's got to be right.
Crossing the astral plate and end up on the other side. Right here where it crosses is where eclipses happen, lunar and solar. And so I want to make more videos depicting that in this 3D model, but it looks like I'm going to have to completely remake this 3D model because Google SketchUp is having trouble maintaining the features of the astral plate. Anyway, that's the video I made wanting to show how the luminaries proceed along the ecliptic. Now the planets do something peculiar. The planets, or the wanderers, the reason they're called wanderers is because they wander along the ecliptic.
In case any of you want to
They look like stars. They're not the sun.
capture this guy's video, I would go there and subscribe something, because what he's talking about, nobody's ever talked
Come
about.
down here to Mercury.
He should be clearing up or making your mind race.
Or too far.
With this guy, he's just driving me mad. It's so ingenious. This is the most exciting thing since flat Earth. This guy.
Never too far in front or behind. Venus does the same thing, only it goes a little farther in front of in this 3D model, but it looks like I'm going to have to completely remake this 3D model because Google SketchUp is having trouble maintaining the features of the astral plate. Anyway, that's the video I made wanting to show how the luminaries proceed along the ecliptic. Now the planets do something peculiar. The planets, or the wanderers, the reason they're called wanderers is because they wander along the ecliptic, and they look like stars. They're not the sun and moon, which are clearly not stars. For instance, Mercury. If we come down here to Mercury, Mercury never strays too far in front or too far behind the sun. But like the moon, Mercury crosses the ecliptic to one side of the ecliptic, goes in front of the sun, crosses back, and then goes behind the sun. Never too far in front or behind. Venus does the same thing, only it goes a little farther in front of and behind the sun. So as the sun is proceeding along the ecliptic, Mercury and Venus are also proceeding with the sun, but then they surpass the sun, and once they stop proceeding, then they retrograde. Once they stop proceeding with the sun, then they retrograde, and all retrograde means is the luminary is now moving the same direction as the rotation of the astral plate. So right now Mercury is in retrograde, and that's where a lot of astrology talks about retrograde motions of the luminaries. And there was a time when astrology was astronomy. They were one and the same. There was no difference. So Jupiter, for instance, Jupiter and Saturn, they retrograde differently than Mercury and Venus. While Mercury and Venus go around the sun, are never too far in front, never too far behind, crossing the ecliptic, Jupiter and Saturn proceed for about, so Jupiter proceeds for about 9 months, stops, retrogrades for 5 months, and then proceeds for 9 months. Saturn proceeds for about, I believe it's close to that, like about a year, and then retrogrades for about half a year, something like that, and then proceeds. While Mars proceeds for about 3 years, retrogrades for 3 months, proceeds for 3 years, retrogrades for 3 months. So it's kind of a difficult concept to grasp. So I'll try to make a better video on retrograde motion of the luminaries with regard to the astral plate once I fix this. Fix this file in Google SketchUp. Of the luminaries without the astral plate, so you can see them rotating around because they're moving with the astroplate. They're rotating around the North Pole, but they're all proceeding along the ecliptic on the astroplate. So it's kind of some relative motion. The astroplate and the luminaries with the sun and moon. I want to do a more in-depth look at this animation that I made between January 1st, 2016 at midnight to January 5th, 2016 at 6 p.m. And I just want to show the luminaries orbiting the North Pole along the ecliptic within the astroplane. So I'll go ahead and hit play on the animation, and I'll slowly start removing and adding the Earth plane and astroplate, and removing and adding the luminaries and sun and moon. So right here you can see that, and if I move the mouse too much, it kind of makes the keyframe animation extension in Google SketchUp act slow in the animation terms, so you just have to kind of look at what I'm looking for, or what I'm talking about. Okay, so if we look at the luminaries like Mercury, Venus, or Mercury, Mars, and Saturn, orange, while the sun is yellow, the moon is kind of white, bluish white, and Venus is kind of a light purple. I made these colors this way because that is how they look. Those are the colors they exhibit when I look through my telescope. So when I remove the astroplate, you can see the luminaries still orbiting the North Pole. But since the luminaries precede and retrograde along the ecliptic, their circles aren't perfect circles. They're basically spiraling, or like spiraling down or winding down. Now the one thing that's hard to understand, if we just remove the luminaries and look at the sun and moon, is that the sun and moon are on the top half of the plate right now, which is the southern hemicycle of the sky, which means that it's reflected off of the firmament. So if I take the sun here, make a copy of it, and the luminaries with the sun and moon. I want to do a more in-depth look at this.
I want to look at this again. When he sets it on the earth, I want to see those wobble a little bit slower. Thank you for your patience. I could see they were moving and wandering, but without the line there, it took me a little while to get the landmarks. But oh my goodness, yeah, they're just completely crazy, right? That's okay. I got it. Thank you.
Now, one thing that's hard to understand, if we just remove the luminaries, like the sun and moon, is that the sun and moon are on the top half of the plate right now, which is the southern hemicycle of the sky, which means that it's reflected off of the firmament. So if I take the sun here, make a copy of it, and then hit paste, you can see that the sun, and I might actually make an animation for this. The sun would actually appear to be right there due to the reflection of the firmament. So to an observer down here in, say, Texas, where I'm at, just put the camera down there. So it's an observer looking in this direction. The sun would appear to be right there because it is reflecting off of the firmament and showing the top half of the astroplate, if that makes sense. Anyway, so back to the animation. So if we remove the earth plane and astroplate, now you can see the sun and moon completing their circuits. And you can't really tell, but the sun is proceeding along the ecliptic. If I bring back the astroplate, you can see that since the ecliptic is a half circle along one side of the face of the ecliptic, that as it rotates and the sun moves along the ecliptic, the circle that the sun is making around the North Pole begins to spiral inward and outward. So when the sun is right here, it is the autumn equinox.
That's crazy.
Right here, it's the day after vernal equinox. Same thing on the other side.
Man.
The sun is right here, it's vernal equinox, and the sun is right here.
Stop it. A little bit at a time.
Autumn equinox. And so when the sun is here, that's summer solstice or June solstice because it's in the Gemini. And when the sun is here, it is in winter solstice or the December, it's in Sagittarius. So as the sun, as the sun slowly proceeds along the ecliptic, the circles that it's making around the North Pole, as it gets to the center, the perfect center, which would be December 21st, the circle would be the smallest. But as it gets out to the edges, the circle would be much wider. When it flips to the other side, through the Enoch door, it also makes its way to the center. But on the bottom face, the north face, this is when it's over the Tropic of Cancer, and then it slowly makes its way to the equator, flips off to the top side, and when it's right over the December solstice, it's physically over the tropic. It's physically over the northern Tropic of Cancer, but it's reflecting off the firmament and appearing to be over the Tropic of Capricorn.
What?
Luminaries do the same thing. So like I said, it's kind of a difficult thing to grasp, but this is why I make these videos. Thanks for watching. Proceeding with the sun, then they retrograde, and all retrograde means is the luminary is now moving the same direction as the rotation of the astroplate. So right now Mercury is in retrograde, and that's where a lot of astrology talks about retrograde motions of the luminaries. And there was a time when astrology was astronomy. They were one and the same. There was no difference. So Jupiter, for instance, Jupiter and Saturn, they retrograde differently than Mercury and Venus. While Mercury and Venus go around the sun, are never too far in front, never too far behind, crossing the ecliptic, Jupiter and Saturn proceed for about...
What do we know about astrology? We know it's forbidden to seek your futures in it. We've been told it doesn't work. But if it doesn't work, why did God forbid it? I think it was a form of them cheating. And that's why they weren't supposed to use it. They were supposed to rely on God, knowing, and not focusing on every day. But yeah, astrology is bad. Astronomy and knowing astronomy is not. There is a difference, and no one here is ever saying that you should go and get your astrological work done because, you're just tempting, and you'll reap what you'll sow. And who knows, you might end up like Nancy Reagan trying to manipulate your husband behind the scenes, or something crazier. Who knows?
So Jupiter proceeds for about 9 months, stops, retrogrades for 5 months, and then proceeds for 9 months. Saturn proceeds for about, I believe it's close to that, like about a year, and then retrogrades for about half a year, something like that, and then proceeds. While Mars proceeds for about 3 years, retrogrades for 3 months, proceeds for 3 years, retrogrades for 3 months. So it's kind of a difficult concept to grasp. So I'll try to make a better video on retrograde motion of the luminaries with regard to the astroplate once I fix this. Fix this file in Google SketchUp. Of the luminaries without the astroplate, so you can see them rotating around the planet.
Excuse me.
Because they're moving. With the astroplate, they're rotating around the North Pole, but they are all proceeding along the ecliptic on the astroplate. So it's kind of some relative motion.
Good morning, everyone. Let's start today's video with this quote by George Orwell in his book 1984. What are the stars? They're bits of fire a few kilometers away. We could reach them if we wanted to, or we could blot them out. The Earth is the center of the universe. The sun and the stars go round it. I love this quote from the book 1984. So I do sometimes go outside on my balcony and look at the sky, especially now, springtime, it's not cold outside. So the other night I was staring, just looking at the stars at night, and I saw this falling star. I was looking west from my balcony, and from about 45 degrees, or maybe a little bit higher than that, I saw this falling star disappear into the horizon. It was a straight line from top down and disappeared over the horizon. So that made me question, if we lived on a ball, the people below the equator should be seeing this star rising up from the equator. You see here this little globe and 3 people above the equator, Japan, China, and Borneo. So they look at this star falling, but the people who are in Timor-Leste, Perth, Australia, Tasmania, would have to see this star rising up from the equator line. But this never happens. You have never seen a star rising up from the horizon line, meaning it's falling below the equator and it's rising above the equator. Here's another view from the side. I was looking at this star falling. So for the people in Australia, this star should be rising up from the equator. 2 people, one standing in Japan and another one below the equator, should see the same star. One sees it falling, disappearing to the equator, and the other one sees it as rising. Same thing for someone who is in Africa. Let's say in South Africa, they see the star falling. The people who live in North Africa should see the same star rising up the horizon line, which never happens. Here we have added, this is a firework actually going up that I placed it right at the horizon, demonstrating like if someone is in South Africa and see this star falling, the other person who lives in North Africa should be seeing the same star rising up the horizon line. So you will never see this thing happen in real life because we don't live on a spinning ball. So this is exactly what's going on. We can see when we compare the same idea on a flat earth. You see me standing in Japan and see looking at that star, falling star, as I did, and the same star is falling to everyone who sees it until it disappears towards the end of the dome. Same thing for someone who is in North Africa sees the star falling, and the person in South Africa will see the star coming from the top and falling behind them towards the end of the dome. So this is what we observe in real life. We do not observe any stars rising up the horizon. You will never see that because we don't live on a spinning ball. We live on a flat and stationary earth. That's all for today, guys. Hope you all have a good day. Thanks for watching. Take care. See
That ended kind of quickly. I was still finishing my sandwich. Way to go. That's pretty cool. Wow. Well, that's about 3 hours. About 11 o'clock here. I think I'm going to shut it down. I'd like to thank everybody for showing up. If you're a man,
Randy, you sad to die on Mars?
let's
Looking
just
back.
have a quick prayer. Men, you know, women, you know. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for a full day of being in the Spirit, praising the Lord, and seeking your will and sharing your word. I thank you, Heavenly Father, for the joy and the time. I pray that you will bless me with another chance to be blessed and share. I pray for each one who listened and will listen that they will be blessed and share by confessing with their mouth what they believe in their heart, that Jesus Christ is Lord. Because Jesus Christ is Lord. And in his name we pray. Amen. Thank you again. Thank you so much. So Flat Earth Nation, my flood was Armageddon. You know, I'm never going to tell you anything else. Why would I? Why would my friends, if we were going to keep saying we're trying to prove we have your best interest at heart? Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. And I can't tell you how glad I am that I've been saying that for so long. Because we really, you know, and I do. I wanted to be sincere without being fake. And the Lord gave me that I really want me and my friends to have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho.